Pisha to datri 1011 šarele Assyriateve bafrosejve. وموزبنا وهاوي أسيرياتيفي أوقولو حيرو وأوقولو شاريو دوعا موسريو يببريثو. وأوني شد أسيرياتيفي دماحت فرجونو بوفوكوس ودنوقل عطيبي وشو شوتت كون بين دوعا ميذن لبريثو كولا. لجن أسيرياتيفي تقودرم داوم بوفلحونيذي قلو زملي إم عذرون ثاثخو. إذا كورحميتو وشغلت أسيرياتيفي وكوحوزيتو إلصويثد أسيرياتيفي بو حقلو دي ميديا مفصوحينا ساقيد معضريتو أسيرياتيفي. درب مشحل في كبخ معضريتو أسيرياتيفي. كبخو هويتو هادومي بو فيسبوك منيونو تزوزي ناعيمة أو إنقلد رحميتو دهويتو هادومي بو يوتيوب تاموستب منيونو تزوزي ناعيمة.
On the last presentation or two last presentations. Apparently the comment from David Perry on Sanharib there touched many people and me too. That was the reason I put it at the end. But in order to show that the cycle was really closed, we should go to the beginning, and I give it to Abud. There is an anecdote why Sanharib was named Sanharib.
Yes, as you know, the name Assyrian is invented since 100 years. Right? So the story of Sanharib's name is, as it's written, his father, Butros, was his father's name, was also accompanied very often. The patriarch page was the third, the Syriac Orthodox patriarch. And one day the patriarch told him, if you will get a son, name him Sanharib, after one of our mighty kings. So this is maybe around 50 years before inventing us. just as one small anecdote. Yeah, thank you.
When I was arguing this modern law, and they were, especially on the second generation, because I was very interested in how they built this association.
We need to research what happened to Then how did conventions like genocide become a part of it? Does that become a flavor for I was guessing that it has to do with international You were here, right? I was like,
هذا ليه
تعرف وانا الدور انا مشكور برضه اللي يجي زولمينا مقضي
Thank you.
I'm very sorry because we are having some problem with Zoom. But just be a bit patient. That's right, because now my computer has asked me to update.
No, okay. Let's see, this is the last one we did. So this story of this book, Michal Abdallah reached out to me and said, can we publish it? I mean, this is the original Karavan. Have you seen this? So this is Alexander we helped him. So when I say helped to publish it, it's just we get somebody to not to translate because one of Mikhail's Polish is excellent. He translated all of it into Polish. And then from Polish he translated to English. And this guy, he's the guy who helped him. His English was good, but still not modern. So we had to work on the data process. That was a big piece of it. But every one of my students in my class now, 20 students, they all have this book. This is the thing where my student, one of them came up to me, she said, I'm so happy after reading this, I cannot believe how good that book is. And they have this in their hands. One of my students said, he's very theoretic Durant, he said, it's so fascinating that this man, the youngest Syrian boy, like it moves these young kids, and they really feel that they should be happy. So the more of these stories, the story we get out of them, they get oh yeah.
My suggestion
I'm very sorry, Jeff, do you hear us? Hello? Jeff, do you hear us? Can you speak, please? ولا
all the Armenian various teachers come from various cultures. The village of where maybe further shut that down. That's how sure you something. And if I can find it. See, this is Briggs. So these are all Americans. These were American missionaries that went and did work.
Hello?
You would never know this unless you, I mean, when someone showed this to me, I went, oh, wait a minute.
We hear you through the computer, but we don't. How can you connect this to the... At least one phone.
That's how so many things.
I'm sorry, Okay.
I didn't know any.
I can hear you very well.
يدوتم ملفانا جفري خان ملفانا كبيرة وبليخة رابة على اللشان وتشقيتا بس ليلة وكبيرة بس بلشان وتشقيتا مثلا كمل بانا رابة الدين من بيستوبة كامبريدج Registered Professor لبس أخذ لشان عتيقة هم لشان خاتا ويد الرابة لشان شماي من هذه السبب طالن قائي قرابة لأن جوف يد البيثة مثل بسيمة من دوبر إلى مخيم إنجليزي اديو بول قتل قام طالن اتجاهف تمخش نمن يعني بيوما الدين طالن الدنيا شو آلة ودوراشة بيناتك قوة وخمهي وخلشان دخيلة تدي هم جفتري خان مشوتت منن أو طراب السيما. The role is yours, dear Jeffrey. Thank you.
Before, FM, sorry, could you allow me to share my screen, because I can't share my screen.
Wait, let's share. Can I share? Yeah.
No, he has to share.
No, he has to share.
Go to participants. I'll share. Go to participants. Come here.
Allow share. Allow share.
Now you can share. Wait.
Yes?
بس وبالدخل هنا خلاص
We have to overlay too.
Okay. Now you can share.
Okay, so that's it. Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to say I'm very happy I've been able to participate on Zoom. I'm very sorry I can't be at the conference to be with you in person. It's a bit of a teaching term here at the Cambridge, so it's impossible for me to come. But I'm very sorry I missed the opportunity to meet so many of you, and there are many friends of mine that I haven't seen in a while, and I'd love to be there, but I hope you're enjoying the conference in Paris. So I'm going to talk Turkey and Iran linked Turkey by the beginning of the 20th century. There was a cluster of Christian dialects in the Balkanic region in areas that are now Shirna and Sirk provinces. Dialects such as Ruma, Swata, Bulgara, Junaid. Then the Judy cluster, which I know a lot of many people in comparison from this to be dialects from this cluster based on border. Armenian, Arabic, Turkic person. And these are the distributions of these languages now today, but these all in one way or the other have impacts on the legal dialects through bilingualism and multilingualism. And I'll very briefly show how these had an effect. Arabic, in fact, had a conservative influence on many dialects in that, for example, the interdental stop was this man is one of the final speakers I met who could speak his dialect very well. And very unfortunately, he, together with a lot of the other older speakers, died in the COVID pandemic. So after ISIS came the COVID pandemic, which was a great tragedy for the speakers. But here I recorded him speaking over years, but here we are, just about 23 seconds. So that is just a clip of dialogue, just probably make a statement. So I'm just finishing now, showing that the important thing to do is to document these dialects. And this is me, this is my documentation work, and I encourage my students to work on it. I've also been training over the years several various workshops, particularly on drum. Very serious ideas to learn how to document their own language. I think this is very important. And I say to everybody, this is my motto through this period, because you have to talk to philosophy about your heritage is in your mouth. That's very important to document it. Okay, well, thank you very much. I'll stop there. I'm sorry if I've gone too late. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, dear Professor Jeffrey, for this rich and excellent conference. We are very sorry because of the time. We have had some technical problems here in the hall. But as usual, your participation is always enriching, and it's also for us an honor having you, even if it's online. I'm very sorry that you couldn't make it this year, but next year you have to promise that you will come. So, thank you again, and how proud I was see. Okay, before you go, guys. Thank you. Okay, say hello to Colette as well, Jeff. Thank you. Perfect. Just a second, now well, we are now arriving to, let's say, Ecuador, as we are saying in Spanish. So in the middle of our, or the first part of our second day. And due to this, we have had a bit, we are a bit late, but we will use now occasion to probably visit. Tony, Miopra, Zen Zairukhune Monument, okay? Just a few things. We are going to take the bus, and but those who are registered will take the bus, and others should take a car. We have several cars here, so please let's be a bit, on hurry, because so we can visit the monuments, and then we will have lunch in a place. It's not at the same place that I said yesterday, but they're having to change. So, Tony, you will follow.